Okay, let's talk about hardware compatibility list and what it is and why we need it and all that stuff. So first of all, what is hardware compatibility list? Like typically OEMs publish, excuse me, publish hardware compatibility list where they saying, okay, I'm the mainboard vendor, and this GPU is compatible, this memory is compatible, this CPU is compatible with my hardware. Um, and that's essentially a list which is validated, should be validated. I guess like not always they doing everything. What we doing in Dasharo team is validation of the hardware that we have, or asking community for contributing the um, boot logs or some information about the system booted with Dasharo, so we can confirm that this GPU, this CPU, or this memory is supported. And why we need this? We need this to evaluate various properties of the platform. So we would like to know, of course, for some properties we can evaluate security. So for example, if we have TPM, for some we would like to evaluate, I don't know, performance. I don't know if we can connect two GPUs for our AI workload, or compliance in some cases. Yeah, so we just realized after all these years of development of BIOS that UEFI BIOS development is essentially a function of hardware you can validate. It's it's really like with this discussion about the microcode updates. It's really about the pipeline, about the lab, and the pipeline which you can run to validate your hardware. Uh, Ideally, if it is 100% unattended, but for example, laptops is very hard to test everything on laptops in an unattended way. Of course, there are tools that various companies invent, create to make it happen, but essentially, uh, your customers and people who buying given hardware plus BIOS, which is considered part of hardware by many, is the question for them is what is supported, what is compatible, and if my configuration that I have right now will have any problems if I will transition to Dasharo. So that's why we have to publish those information. Unfortunately, it's taking time to update. So our problem statement is that Dasharo HCLs are updated way too rarely, and we should like have better tools for that. And that's what this talk is about. So how to get to the HCL? So you essentially starting with the going to the docs-dasharo.com, you're starting with the supported hardware, then you're going to your main board. Let's say this is MSI. Then you're going to hardware compatibility, and then you have this CPU HCL, memory HCL, GPU HCL, and so I divided that into manual and automatic because manual got little bit more information and automatic little bit less. Automatic is based on LSPCI output. So this is how it look like. This is where you can find it. Of course, the layout that I'm presenting right now is not published yet because this was just done today. So I guess it has to go through the review, but I will tell you about the results anyway. Okay. Okay, so what I found out. So I found out that our community and partners sent us around 10 of gigs of compressed HCL reports. A lot of this, of course, are BIOS binary backups, but rest of that is compressed text from the DMID code, LSPCI, and various other Linux system commands which we gather. Last update of this HCL for MSI was 20 July, so it's over a year, but here we have it. In those 10 gigs, I found 1300 HCL reports, and just around 400 had the Dasharo BIOS. So the problem is that many people do the HCL report before deploying Dasharo. And after they deploy Dasharo, they see, oh yes, Dasharo works, I'm happy with that. Let's move on, and they do not contribute Dasharo reports. So that means essentially our database is smaller. So those HCL reports were reported for 17 unique Dasharo supported hardware platforms. Okay, among those HCL dumped reports, there are a couple which were very interesting and kind of unexpected, I would say, because people seem to run our Dasharo toolsuite on some random hardware. So, for example, on Hewlett-Packard, Compaq, on some platforms that I never heard about, like Brunion or Gowin, I never heard about those. And you can find that there are some uncompatible MSI boards. There seem to be other clever vendors who's running because I recognize those NS50 and V4X kind of identifiers. And yeah, and there are also even so like system manufacturer, system product name, so like kind of no name, no information in SMBIOS field. But anyway, this is very interesting that people who don't have Dasharo support run that also and dumping the logs and sending those logs to us. So we created something called a Dasharo toolsuite Hardware Compatibility List Manager. It's Apache 2, written in Bash, very simple. You can go to the Dasharo dts-hw-conf-gen repository and find this, and it helps us parse all these HCL reports and produce the output which we can put on the page. How to use that? You essentially we like downloading from the cloud massive zip file with a lot of HCL reports. Then we unzip it. Then we find certain patterns of the names inside the uncompressed content, and then we pass that information to the DTS HCL manager. And then we can provide various parameters that we want to extract: CPU information, GPU information, memory, mainboard. Of course, not everything is very well supported. Support for GPU extraction, GPU information extraction is limited. There is issue in which we're discussing how to do that reliably. And Zirblazer got strong opinion about that. There is also question about if mainboard versioning is even needed. So far, we didn't use that by any means, but who knows? Maybe this is needed. Yeah, and this is you can see on the bottom. This is sample call. So, for example, this platform name prefix could look like Microstar International, blah blah blah, MS7D25, and then it's essentially start to parse all the HCL. It takes some time, but the output look like that. This is sample output. So essentially we're getting CPU info, extraction from CPU info. So for example, there are some weirdness in CPU info. For example, 14th generation does not have generation at the beginning. So we can see this is 14,700K CPU, and there is no generation at the beginning. But for all the previous one, there was generation at the beginning. So someone decided to either change the format of this file, either this is like Intel new approach. So we found for Z690, we found 15 new combination of CPU and Dasharo version. There is support for all the generations, like 12th, 13th, 14th generation, and 12th generation is most extensively tested. We saw that i3, i5, i7, and i9 CPUs are on the list. And because of the way how it was presented so far on the docs-dasharo.com, we decided to kind of merge the two tabs, because there is essentially one binary which boots both of those platforms. It doesn't matter if this is DDR4 or DDR5 platform, but there were two tabs saying which CPUs are supported. So at the point we created it, we thought that it makes sense, but right now I think this doesn't make sense. It just causes problems in maintaining. So I merged those two tabs into one, and then this silicon initialization code is the same FSP, and that's why the CPU should work no matter what. Of course, memory modules are a little bit different discussion, but because obviously those are two different main boards, but CPU is the same. Yeah. So I should have a link here, but it's not merged yet, so that's why I didn't add the link. So this is what we added. So we can see various models, the T models, the F models. I guess the F models, there was discussion about F models. They don't have integrated graphics, but there are people who have no issues running it and even sending reports. Yeah, the K models, a lot of K models in various configurations, and even the most high-end one, like the KS or KF here. And there is even one report from 14th gen. I just added 14th gen for the consistency in the report. This is how it looked like for Z690. In case of memory, we found 21 new combinations of memory modules for various versions of Dasharo. There are various speeds supported from 2133 mega transfers per second to 3200 mega transfers. The last one is for Samsung. There is only one report with that speed. This is for Z690. There should be one for Z790, but there is some problem with script. I couldn't extract memory information, so there is something to be fixed. So ranking is like that most of these modules are from Kingston, then Corsair and Crucial, and all the other ones are just one report. So, and there are like some brands that I never heard about. Yes. And this is how it looked like. Of course, this is much more complicated. The module name is looks like very readable by humans. This is size of the memory. This is speed, and this is configuration in which it was connected. The problem here that we have in reporting is that that there are like various configuration, the same modules but connected differently, and they essentially should be merged. It's not done yet, but this is something that could be improved in the skills. And you can see that there are some modules like SN Core Limited. I never heard about this company. ESD Technology Limited. Never heard about component doing this kind of. G-Skilled. I know about those modules, but we didn't test it. Yeah, there's Samsung with this 3200 mega transfers. Team Group, also something that I never heard about. But then GPU, and with GPU we had quite a discussion in community a couple times. There's issue 462, which you can read to understand the complexity of getting information about GPU from the platform. What GPU I have, and to be honest, the question is what parameters of this GPU are really important for hardware compatibility list. There are also inconsistencies or difference between LSPCI version reporting. So, for example, for integrated graphics, we have this Alder Lake, Intel Corporation Alder Lake SGT1, and for Raptor Lake, we have something like this: Intel Corporation device. And then you can, if you know the ID, then you can figure out what it is. So I just skipped all the integrated graphics because this doesn't make sense and does not add any information for the users. But we found, yeah, I guess I should. Where's the GPU? Here's the GPU list. Okay, I also added the information about the CPU supported for on Z790, 12 unique CPUs. Obviously, much newer CPUs, more 14 gen and more 13 gen than in the previous case. So I added all those to the HCL report so people and community can find which one are supported. And in case of this GPU, just to finalize the GPU information, 21 GPU configurations were found, mostly from AMD, 12 from AMD, and 9 from NVIDIA. And since this is automatic parsing from LSPCI, there are still some weird bugs like this one, where precise model is not correctly recognized. Of course, we have to. This information is provided in LSPCI output, but of course, LSPCI output for AMD and for NVIDIA is different, so you have to parse this differently. And there are even some people who use in configuration which are multi-GPU. So we even mention that information if there are multi-GPU. But of course, there is no guarantee that this is heterogeneous or homogeneous configuration. In case of NVIDIA, a bunch of cards also added as supported because someone sends these results. So at least from now, if someone will ask for the GPU support, you can go to the HCL, or after we merge this into the documentation, you can go to HCL or send them to HCL and say, this is information we have. Yeah, so as I said, most people run DTS HCL report before deploying Dasharo, not after. So that's part of the problem. Because of that, we're losing information about the compatibility. Memory configurations could be managed better. Right now, not every combination is tested and reported. And then there is also this Z700p, 790p, where I don't have memory reported yet. So this is something to be done. And call for action, we have very nice new menu in DTS. So it would be great if you just like download the DTS, boot on your platform if you have Dasharo, and then do the number one, the Dasharo HCL. So this one, Dasharo HCL report, and then you will get we will get information about your hardware to the point what GPU using, what CPU using, what memory using, and thanks to that we could inform other people how this works and if their configuration will be good. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? Yeah. Main problem, DGPUs. Yes, the main problem are DGPUs, people asking about DGPUs, many people building various, even complex configurations with desktop. Yes, Thierry.
Yeah, I put it in the pad to track it in discussions later, but my question there, I discussed it with a couple of 3MDeb engineers, and the question is, could we port the code from CBIOS instead of Coreboot to actually extract a PROM and measure it and then use it? Because it seems that the main problem is the GPU, outside maybe of memory, but like I wanted to have your opinion on that.
So I'm not, I'm not expert in that, so I don't know if I'm good person to ask. Maybe if there will be Michał, I don't know if he's here today. He should be later. He's got demo. Maybe he's preparing demo. But anyway, maybe Michał, maybe someone else from 3MDev could answer that question. Like loading in UEFI is also possible. There is no there is just a question about legacy compatibility, I would say. I'm not sure what problems we would solve porting code from CBIOS.
But basically, everybody like in LibreBoot or others are just using core boot to launch CBIOS. CBIOS is either like open, doing legacy initialization and working. But the main problem that I see, for example, for MSI and all the other problems that we discussed, like off channel, is that everybody wants to put their own DGPU inside of workstation and expect it to work. And the problem is that it doesn't. And then like on Ed's side, it means that we have to extract the UPROM, we have to bind it, fuse it inside of core boot so that it's early initialized. And then CBIOS is doing exactly that part. Like it's able to detect PCI, access it, read, extract.
I get your point. In your use case, it would work, because it supports your use case, but like most of Dasharo stuff is core boot plus UEFI, and the problem there is bad drivers, not working with secure boot enabled, for example, some lack of drivers or some weirdness in the PCI initialization, and that's because of no compliance or some problems in resource allocation, for example. Especially if you have multiple GPUs. So those kind of problems are in DGPU environments we care about, because like initialization of the through CBIOS as a CSM. I don't know if this would help us. The CSM part, the CBIOS value for us as a CSM is in the PS2 support, for example. So, but this is completely different area.
Yeah, for PS2, if you can debrief me, like I read the issues, but I'm not sure I understand the problem.
So essentially we have no support for PS2 initialization in EDK2. And we tried various things, and some keyboards sometimes work, sometimes don't work. And essentially in PS2 detection, there's no standard PS2 detection mechanism. And of course, because of the way EDK2 is designed and drivers are written, like with all those notifications and events and so on and so on, this is completely different from the interrupt-driven world of legacy BIOS. So I kind of suspect because of that, there is issue in implementation of correct support for PS2. And of course, commercial BIOS got the CSM module, so they can support this situation. But PS2, like I don't know if we will have hardware with PS2 in, I don't know, in 5 years, in 3 years.
Yeah, deprecated.
Yes. So the problem right now, there is no standard mechanism for detecting PS2 keyboard, and even if it is detected, then the initialization of that is not stable, and we have some weird behavior despite our smartest engineers looked into that and couldn't find the reliable way of initializing all the possible. And the problem is also other that some people use those keyboards, trying to use those keyboards in core boot plus heads environment, and just coming to us and saying like, I just got this keyboard from vendor and it doesn't work with Dasharo, but I paid for the core boot plus heads, Dasharo core boot plus heads. I want this to work. Yeah.